My drug of choice.
Oh yeah. Remember those?
My total drug of choice. Had to have it.
Now I know what to have for you when you come to the thing. I'll have pink lemonade.
See?
It's Crystal Light Diet Pink Lemonade.
Okay. She remembers.
And bottles of water, you know.
Right.
That's all I can have now. That
So
milk, that's my go-to, milk and pink lemonade, yeah.
So we are live at 8 o'clock, as promised, with the man, the legend, Mr. Chip Coffey. Thank you so much, Chip.
I'm sure about that legend.
Legend. I said legend. It is legend. For those of you who don't know, I know there are people that are watching that don't normally watch us. We are New Jersey Paranormal. I'm John. This is Chris. We do live feeds where we just talk about paranormal things. We do interviews. We also do live investigations. So if you like the interview, maybe come back, check out some of the other stuff. But we're not the important person here. That gentleman, Mr. Chip Coffey, is the person you're watching for. Let's not sugarcoat this. Chip, how are you? How you been?
I'm doing okay. How are you guys?
We're doing okay. I mean, it's been that year, and I got some good news today. Finally,
I saw that. I'm hearing feedback. Are you getting feedback on your end too?
Are you getting feedback? No.
I heard myself talking for a minute there. It's good now. It seems like it's good now. I saw your good news online today. I was so happy for you. You know, it's tough when you've got someone in your family who's not doing well, and especially health-wise. So I was remembering you all in my prayers, of course, and it did my heart good to see that news for you and your family.
I was nervous, to be honest with you. When things, you have this kind of year and things are going bad and bad and bad, you expect bad and you don't want to, but you do. And I did, believe me, I was like this, but
well, I'm sure
I was prepared. And thank God that everything worked out for my daughter and cancer clear. And she's
and this guy got me a train ticket to go down and be with my other daughter, since the one that passed away, she's having a hard time losing her sister. So, and my daughter passed, her birthday's on the 28th. So we're going to celebrate it and turn it into something different.
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's been a really tough year all the way around.
Yeah. Well, we're getting there. We'll get through it, and better days are coming. We got the vaccine, and hopefully next September we'll be seeing you face to face. You'll be able to leave the Chip Coffey Batcave, and
I know.
Chip is underground in a bunker right now. For those of you who don't know, he's actually in a bunker.
I've been home. Are you ready for this? I've been home I officially started quarantining on the 7th of March.
Sure.
And I then realized soon afterwards that I really haven't been anywhere for quite a while. And that was since the 17th, came home from the last trip I was on the 17th of December last year. So today's the 23rd. So almost a year and a week that I've really been at home. So it's been tough because I'm used to getting out and going all over the place. And, I've had to stay at home with my medical conditions. I'm diabetic and have a respiratory ailment. So, and coupled with my age, or tripled with my age, all that stuff came into play. And my doctor said, you've got to stay home. And as we all know, the COVID numbers are just climbing. For the first time in a long time, we had over 9,000 COVID diagnoses in Georgia yesterday, where I live in Georgia.
Yeah. We just got to get through it. The vaccine hopefully can't get here soon enough, and we just got to get through it. That's all we can do.
All we can do.
Let me segue from that right into Kindred Spirits. For those of you who don't know Chip, and I don't know who doesn't know Chip, but Chip is one of the cast members of Kindred Spirits, along with Adam Barry, Amy Bruni. Chip was also on Paranormal State for a number of years. Psychic Kids for one season. Psychic Kids, 2.
Three
okay.
seasons.
And but Chip, they're going to start Kindred Spirits in 2 weeks? I think the new season.
It's actually, what is today? It's a little less than 2 weeks now. So we start officially back with new episodes on January 2nd at 10 o'clock Eastern time, and we're going to air this season on Saturdays at 10.
Saturdays at 10. So again, speaking of COVID and the way it's affected everything, your involvement with the show, I don't want to give anything away, but it's kind of changed because of COVID and your health concerns.
100%. Amy and Adam and the crew were out filming, and they filmed kind of close to home with COVID restrictions. They filmed in their area, and they were in the Northeast and New England, which is where Amy and Adam live, and most of the crew and the production company are also located there. So they got out on the road and took really extreme COVID precautions while they were traveling. But the network and the production company allowed me to film from home. So it was very different for me not being with the cast and crew on the road, on location. And it was very different for me because I had to try to psychically tap into where they were from, hundreds, sometimes over 1,000 miles away. It was very challenging.
That's what I was going to ask you about. I guess the first question is, before COVID, when you're going into these buildings with them, is there some kind of process that you go through mentally? Do you meditate? Do you walk through the building alone before they do? Or you just go in and go? You open up and away we go?
I go in and go.
Really? So it's like a switch. You could just turn it on and...
For me, it's like the only way that I can kind of liken it so that people might be able to understand is if you got a regular job, you clock in or you get in the mindset that now it's time to go to work. And that's the same way as it is for me. I metaphorically clock in and focus in on the task at hand, and that's the way it's done for me. I'm like, all right, time to go to work.
Was it the same remotely? Were you able to follow the same routine?
It was different because if I'm on the set, on location with the cast and crew, then it's different. Excuse me, it's somewhat different because I'm there and I'm involved in what's going on there to some degree. I'm with the people that are in the cast and crew. They're mulling around, and it's different because this season I was at home. I could go to my living room and wait for them to give me a ring on the phone and say, all right, we're ready to film with you. And sometimes, as with any television production, there were delays. So I was sometimes, sitting around twiddling my thumbs for a couple of hours while they finished up what they needed to do. Right. And on set, that's different because you're there with the people and you see the location from the outside generally. It depends on what happens in those instances, though, because lots of times they keep me sequestered when I'm out on the road and don't tell me anything. They have me drive about a mile away from the location, and when I pull up in the car, that's when Amy and Adam come out and get me, and we do the walkthrough. But if I'm on the set and they're in the middle of what we're doing, then, I've been there for a while after the initial walkthrough. That's what I'm talking about. After the initial walkthrough, I've been there. I've been with the cast. I've been with the crew. And sometimes when they'd call me back after my walkthrough, I may have to wait a while. And, it's different. It's a different dynamic. It just felt very different. But the bottom line is this, that I was so grateful to keep my job and be able to work. Right. And be able to do it from home. And I've watched some of the episodes, and of course I'm biased, but they look great.
So from a technical standpoint, was somebody walking around with a camera and you were fed into the live feed? Could you interact with Adam and Amy, or was it just you?
I did interact with Amy and Adam. The production company sent me a boatload of equipment. They sent me 2 cameras that sat in front of my desk here that I'm sitting at. Christmas tree, of course, was not behind me. There was a backdrop behind me, and this was pushed back a little bit from when I was filming. But we had 2 cameras sitting in front of me and all kinds of cords draped all over the place, 2 laptop computers sitting here, 2 microphones sitting here, a ring light sitting here. There's one sitting up here right now to light me. There was all kinds of equipment around me, thousands of dollars worth of equipment around me. And the cameras, I would log in to a system, and the people in New York at the production company could remotely move the cameras in my house.
Oh, wow.
How weird is that? They were like R2-D2. They were like little dome type cameras. And all of a sudden you'd watch them and they'd go, and they'd be, filming me from different angles or whatever. And on one of the laptops, we had a huge, over on this way from my desk, we had a huge monitor that Amy and Adam would call me on Skype, and we would Skype together, or if they couldn't get a good enough internet connection, we just FaceTimed on the phone. And that's the way we handled it. It was, and they would take their their laptop and walk me around in the building on Skype, and that's the way we sort of went through the process.
So first time doing it, were you a little nervous and apprehensive, like, hey, this might not work, I've never done it this way before, and what happens if I don't pick up on what's going on in that building?
I realized that I was going to have to really up the ante a bit in order to keep my job, in order to make this work. And the production company had already invested in shipping the equipment. We had already spent time setting up all the equipment. Luckily, I had my cousin who lives with me, Kenny, and Greta, my assistant. Greta, of course. They both came and helped me set up all the equipment in the house and get everything all staged for starting. But it was a little unnerving to start out with. But I adapted pretty quickly to what we were doing, and it sort of became the new normal.
Yeah, I think we're learning that we can adapt, and what we didn't think we can do, we're surprising ourselves with a capacity that we really do.
We do adapt and adjust. We have to. I mean, again, that's part of being the human race and who we are.
And there are some people who don't adapt.
Yeah,
there really are. They fall behind, and
so I want to go back now. Again, we're going to kind of jump back and forth here a little bit. I want to go back to Psychic Kids, because I don't think we even talked about that the last time. What was that experience like for you on a personal level mentoring children with those kind of abilities? You'd never done that before, right? With children.
I'd never done that with kids. I'd worked with children in the past in different fields.
Okay.
I majored in psychology, specifically focusing in on families and children when I was in school, when I was in college.
Okay.
And I'd worked in a variety of different fields with kids. As I said, my first job out of college was working as a social worker, then as a special services coordinator / back in the day it was called handicap coordinator for a Head Start program in Florida. I spent 3 years working at a Head Start in Florida with children and families. I've also worked as a teacher. I worked in a psychiatric facility in New York State as an intern. I worked as a substitute teacher for a while. I worked in theater with kids. I actually founded and ran a couple of children's theaters here in Atlanta. So I'd worked with kids in other areas, but I'd never worked with kids on the basis of anything to do with the paranormal. Psychic Kids actually came about because we did an episode of Paranormal State called, I don't know what it was called. It was The Medium or Vegas or something like that. I don't remember exactly what the name of it was, but there was a little girl who was a medium who was being visited by a young girl who had been murdered a couple of states away. It was a very intriguing case. And it was kind of strange because there was a rep from the network who was there during the filming of this episode in Las Vegas. And I think that was when the idea was sort of born that maybe here was a concept for a show to work with psychic kids. And they presented the idea to me and said, let's consider this. And I said, sure. I mean, and we filmed a pilot episode. I mean, yeah, let's go for it. And we filmed a pilot episode at this really remote camp. It was kind of like Camp Crystal Lake almost. It was weird.
Okay.
And I mean, I slept in wooden bunk beds on a plastic mattress, and it was not the Ritz, let's put it that way.
Okay.
And we filmed there for a few days with a bunch of kids. It was right on the border of where Massachusetts and New York and some other state come together. I don't know, but we were in the butt crack of nowhere. Let's put it that way. And we filmed this episode, and it aired, and it scored really well, and the network decided to give us a run as a series, and we did 3 seasons of Psychic Kids. Yeah. For me, it was personally very gratifying. I loved working with the kids. I thought the work we did was great. And, you know, I'm very proud of the work that we did. And that's what led me to write. I kept getting asked the same questions over and over and over and over again about psychic kids. And so that's what prompted me to write my book, Growing Up Psychic.
That's what makes sense to me. I didn't remember about the background in psychology, because the reason I asked that question initially was because I know you got started later in life as a professional psychic medium.
Oh, much later, yeah.
So I was wondering if it was harder to you to relate to the child experience because you really didn't have any frame of reference dealing with that as a child.
I think it helped for me to have studied psychology and to have worked with kids. Otherwise, in the past, it gave me, you know, I was very comfortable with interacting with kids and their families. So I think that I already had a baseline to work from, a platform kind of to work from. So that was not anything that I needed to really adapt very much to, or you know. With kids, you gotta, you know, I swear like a sailor, so I had to watch about swearing like a sailor in front of the kids, and you know that was probably the hardest adjustment, that I couldn't drop the F-bomb in front of an 8 or 10 or 12-year-old, you know.
No, I mentioned it too because I think it was one of the expos, but it was afterwards. Somebody that I know reached out to me and they said, you know, Chip Coffey is an amazing guy. And I said, yeah, I know that. They said, I was at a restaurant local to the expo in Woodbridge, and Chip was there with Greta and I think a few other people. And they said that you kept looking over at this person and the little girl, his daughter, and his little girl smiling, and you would wave and he said, eventually when you finished your meal, you went over and you said to him, your daughter has some abilities. And he said, she does. He said, but I was really nervous about going up to you. I know who you are, but I didn't want to just go up to you while you're eating and say anything. He said, no, I could tell she does. And she nodded to you, that the father said, and she smiled and acknowledged it. And you said, you know, you should start, you know, encouraging her and looking for someone to mentor her who's sort of trustworthy. And he thought it was the greatest thing in the world that someone like you, and anybody that knows you knows that's you. I mean, you don't know you from TV, but you're that kind of guy. I mean, you and I talk all the time about this sort of stuff. Chip is as genuine an article as you're going to meet out there. Right there, that guy you're seeing is Chip Coffey. This is who he is.
You know, I've never, excuse me, I've never felt the need to be anybody other than who I am. I mean, I did acting work for a long time. You know, some people have said, oh, you're an actor. Of course you're acting when you do this. I'm like, no, this is really who I am. You know, don't try to conflate those things. You know, don't be a dick about this and try to conflate the fact that I was an actor and now I'm acting or performing. You know, I don't know how this stuff works, but I know that I don't take myself all that seriously. I take my work very seriously. But here's the deal. I do things that sometimes even surprise me. I don't know where this stuff comes from. It's in my head and out of my mouth a lot of the time. So I don't know where it comes from. So as far as being an actor, I can play a part. You hand me a script, I'll do my best to play a part for you. But when it comes to being who I am, I try to be genuine and authentic and just, you know, be Chip Coffey. I never felt the need to be pretentious or put on any persona or anything like that. What you see is what you get. You don't have to read between the lines, or you know, there's no hidden agenda.
No. You're the type of guy, you ask a question, you get an answer. You may not
I shoot straight to
answer, but you get an answer.
I often tell people, if you don't want to hear what I have to say, then don't ask me a question.
Well,
if I say, do you want to hear what I think? The answer should always be no.
Unfortunately, I haven't learned that yet. I always say, of course, Chip, I'd like to hear your opinion.
You just please say, I'm thinking no. I'm thinking no.
You had mentioned you don't know where it comes from. It just happens. Do you, like, is it sort of like a memory wipe after you're finished, like on a case and like Kindred Spirits, you did that, you moved on. Do you carry that stuff with you afterwards?
For the most part, I don't. Because I figure, you know, sometimes I will learn something when I'm doing a reading. No doubt about it. There's a message in there for Chip. Right. But most of the time after I do a reading, To give you an example, when I'm sitting at my desk doing phone readings, I will pull out an index card and write the person's name down that I'm doing a reading for, and any information that they give me on the index card, and anything I'm feeling that if they're in the middle of talking, if I get something hits me, I will write it down, and then after I'm done, I finish, I rip up the index card and throw it in the garbage can underneath my desk.
And that's it.
So I'm done with it. You know, and there's another medium, a very well-known medium, whose name is John Holland. And he has a line that when he gets information, it's through me, not for me. And it's the same way with me. John, that's a very wonderful way that John put it. And it's the same for me. The information that I generally get is not mine. It doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the person I'm doing the reading for or interacting with at that point in time. So there really isn't any need for me to hold on to that.
Right.
Because it doesn't really belong to me. I'm the channel for that. I'm the medium that's delivered the message. Once the message is delivered, my job is over.
And I could assume that if you did keep all of that, that'd weigh you down. That's just a lot to keep a hold of.
It is too much. And I will let you know that in a minute, totally off topic, you probably are going to hear my doorbell ring and a dog bark, which is going to give you an insight to what's going on at Chip, because Kenny and I, my cousin, we decided that since I was doing this, we would order dinner. And so there's going to be somebody from Uber Eats that's going to be ding-donging my doorbell.
I thought you were doing like some psychic thing there for a minute. I predict someone's going to ring my bell. And
ding-donging my bell sound. I could have said, "Oh, somebody's going to ring my bell soon." But,
Is that Johnny Carson thing where
yes, Karnak.
The Karnak.
The Karnak. Here's another thing too that I always wanted to issue, because I talk to a lot of mediums, and I take in what they say, and I kind of process it, and I catalog it in my brain along the same lines. And we were talking about this the other day. When somebody won't come through to someone like me or someone like her that we're hoping to hear from just on an every day-to-day basis, is it that they could come through easier to someone like you? Are you, as a medium or a psychic medium, are they more of like a beacon to people that have crossed over, where it's easier for them to hone in and communicate? Or
I would say that in the 20-ish years that I've been doing this work professionally, that there have only been a handful of times that I've been completely unable to reach out and connect with someone in the spirit realm. Unlike a lot of other mediums, I don't do open channeling. Open channeling is allowing any spirit that wants to. It's just like having them come through. I work differently. I say, tell me who you want me to reach out to, that one individual who in your heart of hearts you really are kind of jonesing to communicate with, and let me see if I can reach that individual. So very rarely am I completely, nothing.
right.
It's happened on occasion. I don't know why. It could be that my channels are off, that they don't want to talk, that whatever reason, that in life they were very reserved or whatever. I don't know what the reason is when I can't get through. And it always upsets me and disappoints me when I can't connect for a client, because I want to do a good job for my clients.
Right.
And like I said, upsetting and disappointing when I can't connect. But it's happened sometimes. And do I think it's kind of like a beacon? I think somehow the spirit realm knows who I am and who others like me are, and that I can access them with relative ease. That it's pretty easy for me to establish that dialogue.
Right. It is interesting to think about. Again, sometimes I get caught up in the what ifs and the whys, and there are no really real answers. Unfortunately,
there are no answers.
So many questions, and questions lead to more questions.
We don't know what we don't know. Everything is kind of like a big question mark, and anything that we say is just kind of like a theory or a hypothesis. That's all it is.
All right, let's get into the deeper stuff here. I don't know if we've ever talked about religion. I don't want to get too deep into the religious aspect, other than to ask you, do you believe in angels and demons?
I do.
You do?
Mm-hmm.
See, I don't, because I don't come from a really staunch or religion wasn't forced upon me as a child. My mom never said you have to go to church or anything like that. So it's really hard for me to grasp the afterlife according to the Bible, and you know, it sounds like more of, I don't want to offend anybody out there, but me personally, it does sound more like a Harry Potter type of fantasy belief, whereas opposed to energy and the universe and the strange things makes more sense to me. But you're saying,
and that's perfectly fine. That's absolutely fine. Whatever your beliefs are, that you have those beliefs,
right?
And for you to hold on to those beliefs, as long as you don't try to impose or force.
And I never do.
He doesn't.
Yeah, no, and that's great. No one should. Absolutely, no one should. I don't care what you believe. No offense, but I don't care what anybody else believes.
Right.
Personally, I was raised Catholic, and I have a problem with the Catholic Church.
Right.
I don't have a problem with the Catholic faith altogether.
Right.
But the church is another story. I'm not an every Sunday go to church kind of, go to mass kind of Catholic anymore.
Right.
I've incorporated some of my own spiritual beliefs with my Catholicism, and I've kind of developed kind of like the religion of Chip and God. And my relationship.
But I think that's the norm of what it should be. I mean, church is a tool to which to guide us. It's not supposed to be the end all of everything for us. Well, I think it's supposed to be our.
I don't want to get too deep into that because I know religion is tough, like politics is tough. Do you feel like you've ever come across a demon? Have you faced a demon or seen a demon? How did you know it was an actual demon and not just some evil entity, an evil person in life, or just some sadistic person and, you know, spirit form?
I don't know. It felt different.
Okay.
It felt different to me. And the way it was behaving, on Paranormal State, I took part in a deliverance, not really an exorcism, but really more of a deliverance.
Right.
With 2 episodes called there was the I Am Six and Return of.
I remember that.
There were definitely some things going on in the house that the family was beleaguered, and there was a lot going on from a sociological and a psychological viewpoint in that house. But they were exhausted, they were confused, they were afraid. But also there were some paranormal elements in that thing. I mean, I saw this girl in the house, you know, the scratches that just appeared on her out of nowhere. I saw her neck swell up to the point like a puffer fish. It was, her neck just swelled up, and it was horrifying. I saw her sit. I mean, we blink our eyes how many times every minute? I mean, I don't know, but we blink our eyes. We've got her on film for multiple minutes sitting without blinking. I mean, she just did not blink. And physiologically, we just don't do this. No, so there were elements of the fact that were very unexplainable. And when asked who was inside of her, she said, "I am 6."
Yeah, I remember that.
And so, I mean, and her behavior was, I mean, she didn't levitate really. I mean, Ryan Buell tried to pick her up at one point in time, and he said she's probably 100 pounds or less soaking wet. And he tried to pick her up, and he said that felt like she weighed a ton. I've seen this girl during the deliverance actually, and it's on camera. She stops breathing. We had EMTs outside to come in, and they came in to examine her because I go, "Ryan, she's not breathing. Ryan, she has stopped breathing."
Oh my God.
And they had the EMTs rush in and check her, and she, you know, she seemed to be okay. But she wasn't completely possessed. She was intermittently possessed.
Okay.
And part of the whole thing was just trying to figure out just what the heck was going on here. But long story short is I do feel like I've come into contact with entities that are, I've always believed in angels. I was raised Catholic. I mean, it's part of it. I've always believed in angels. So when I did Paranormal State, and I've heard about demons, but you know, I didn't really give much thought about it because it was not in my experience. I hadn't had any experience with it. And then with Paranormal State, I kind of like got baptized by fire, and I had to begin to get some sort of a concept of what I was thinking about demons were and whatever. And it was difficult. Yeah. But I do feel like there's a huge difference between a grumpy or a jerk of a human spirit that's just still being an a-hole, and a demon. Demons, if you believe in angels in any capacity, pure good, you've got to believe in the opposite, which is pure evil, because if you think about it, a lot of things in our universe are built on opposites. Day and night, dark and light, cold and hot. I mean, it's like there's usually a yin and a yang. And if you believe in pure good, you've got to give credence to the fact that there's also pure evil. So that's kind of the way I position it in my head to think about it. But
I would also think that your experience and your psychological background, there's got to be like that, I would think, dual part of your brain that says, let's check for this first. Let's make sure there's no medical issue, no family.
Yeah, the rational to the illogical.
That's what's great about someone like you. You have the abilities to do that. Where, again, I've met a lot of mediums where it's just kind of one way. It's the religion and it's this and that. Whereas a lot of people, even in this field, they don't really run it through any kind of filter and say, wait a minute, let's look at this and that, not just this.
The first thing that you've got to do when you're a paranormal investigator, or that you should do, is try your darndest to rule out any third dimension cause for whatever's going on.
Right.
You've got to completely exhaust every possibility that there's an explanation that doesn't bleed into the paranormal until you come up empty, completely empty. And then you can start to consider the fact that something is paranormal.
Now, did you come out of that experience with her, with that girl? Was that a life-changing? Was that just, oh my God, 100%. I witnessed this, what I've heard about forever, and it's real? See, I haven't had that yet, and I'm afraid that if I did meet that face-to-face,
I hope you never do.
What that's like, because
I hope you never do.
Well, the first time that it happened, we went into a house. First episode that I filmed in December. No, I guess I filmed it in January of 2007. So it's coming up on 14 years since I filmed my first episode of Paranormal State. So I walked into that house. I flew in. I'll give you the story. They called me on the phone. And did an interview. I did an interview first with a producer. Then I talked with Ryan, and then they said, well, we'll get back to you. And I thought, well, whatever. And later that night, one of the production staff, who coincidentally is working with the production company now that produces Kindred Spirits. So I've known Dan Z for a long time. Dan Z called me on the phone. He said, hey, Chip, it's Dan Zarenkevich. And I hear I'm calling you to book some travel. I hear you're going to join us for the next episode of Paranormal. They called it Paranormal U at the time, for Paranormal University, before it was changed to Paranormal State. You're going to join us for an episode of Paranormal U. So I'm calling you to book your travel. I went, damn, Dan, I'm the psychic, and you know more than I do. So booked me the travel. I flew to Philadelphia, drove a car to Elizabethtown, Pennsylvania, and went. I don't remember if it was the same day or the day after. I remember they called me. They gave me the address of the location and said, don't get out of your car. Just stay in your car. And they sent somebody out to meet me and put a mic pack on me and all this stuff. And then, of course, as with television, as we talked about before, I sat and waited and waited and waited.
So you didn't meet Ryan and those guys beforehand? You just came and started?
First time I met Ryan Buell in person was when I walked up to the door of the location for the episode that I filmed.
Wow, that's something. See, that adds credibility to, I would say.
I walked into the place, and immediately I realized that there was something funky going on, something that I'd never experienced before. It felt different, and it felt evil, and it felt pure evil. And it started to brag to me. It was saying, like, get this effing religious shit out of my house. I'm like, out of your house, get this religious stuff out of your house. And then that evening, when we did what they called on that show Dead Time, which was basically trying to conjure up some spirits, the thing told me its name in my head. And for some reason, I knew that I shouldn't say it out loud. So Katrina Weidman handed me a piece of paper. She was sitting next to me, and a pen, and I wrote it down and handed it to Ryan Buell. And that's when he went and said, we need to stop. Well, he went off because he thought producers had fed me information and said, how did he know this name? That's the name that's been coming to me in my dreams, and I've been dealing with this for a while. How did he know this? And the producers are like, I mean, he was calling people. It was 2 or 3 in the morning.
He thought you were just trying to make an impression by pulling this thing out of thin air.
Well, and he called producers at home at ungodly hours of the wee morning and wee hours of the morning. And he was like, why'd you tell him? You told him this. And they were like, Ryan, how could we tell him? We didn't know any of this.
Oh, wow.
You know, none of us knew any of this. You hadn't shared that with any of us. So Ryan had what he called his office in the basement of this house. That's where I met them for the first time. They had sort of set up camp in the basement of these people's house. And they were all sitting there talking when I walked in the first time. After I did the walkthrough, I went downstairs and met the rest of them. I met Ryan already, but went downstairs to meet the rest of the team. They were sitting down there having a soda and having snacks and had a fire going in the fireplace. And that's when I met all of them the first time. But I remember it was just very bizarre and very weird in that house that you know, the name came out and whatever. And then Ryan, in the basement, there was a bathroom, like a little half bath. And Ryan was calling that his office. He set up his computer and everything in the bathroom so he could have some privacy if he needed to make a phone call. So
I
he
call
said,
the bathroom my office from time to time.
come with me back here. And he came back and he said, how did you do that? And I'm like, I don't know. It was just in my head and I knew I shouldn't write it down. And he goes, so nobody told you that? And I said, no, nobody gave me anything. And he goes, well, let me tell you what. You're either, and I'm going to drop the damn word here. I think that's fine. He said, you're either the best, you're either the biggest fraud or the best damn psychic I've ever met.
Wow.
And I said, thank you.
That is funny.
Insults or
but let me ask you this: in the midst of all this, or any other cases like that one, do you ever become anxious and afraid of, like, of the power that you may be, like, potentially something you've never come across? What is the ability of this thing? Does it have the ability to hurt you or mess with your head in a way that you've never? Do you feel that as you're doing it? Like, oh boy.
Oh, sure. I mean, I'm not going to go into any situation unless I feel like I'm in a really prayerful state. Then after this episode, let me tell you what. After the episode in Elizabethtown, the first episode that I did, here's kind of the finishing story. As I walked out of that episode, David Miller, who was one of the executive producers, walked me to my car. It was snowing, and I was going to drive back to Philly. And he walked me and he put his arm around my shoulders, and he said, I just have to tell you, thank you. You have just elevated this show to an entirely.
Oh, yeah, you definitely did. You definitely did.
And I said, thank you. I drove back. I found out, this is something curious. I checked my frequent flyer mileage. I flew in on Delta. Delta's my preferred carrier. I flew in on Delta, and at that point in time, they've changed it and added 1 mile. But at that time, the frequent flyer mileage between Atlanta and Philadelphia was 666 miles.
That should have been a sign right there.
I didn't know it before I went, thank goodness.
Yeah.
They upped it to 667, I think. But at that point in time, Atlanta to Philly was 666 miles. Wow. So the next episode we went on, you asked this question, the same frickin' demon showed up on this episode at the house that we did Devil in Syracuse. They 100%, it showed up again.
But how do you explain something like that? Was it following Ryan, or was it? Wow, that is bizarre.
Actually, was it? Well, let me back up on that. Was it following Ryan, or was Ryan being drawn to where it was?
Oh,
good
wow.
question.
That's crazy. How does something like that happen, do you think? You just come across something that all of a sudden is attached to you and draws you?
I don't know if it was attached to him, or he was just being led to find people that were being
right.
You know, it was being oppressed or possessed or whatever.
That's crazy to even think about something.
So we go into this place. We fly. Reverend Andrew Calder and I fly together from Atlanta to, where'd we go? I think we flew into Rochester because it was cheaper on the production company. and then rented a car and drove New York State Thruway across to Syracuse area. I remember I got a speeding ticket on that trip. Yeah, $80. We got there and it was cold and we were knee deep in snow, and they had put a Winnebago outside the house that was demonically infested. Was a single wide trailer, actually.
Wow.
And so in a mobile home park, and they had a Winnebago out there for us to get warm in and sort of, congregate in. And I remember Andrew had gone in and felt the place out, and he said, I think we need to go get Chip. And they came to get me, and I was mic'd up and went in, and there was a little kind of a wooden steps and a little landing up on the porch and a screen door on the door into it was the front door to the trailer. And I put my hand on I remember reaching out and putting my hand on it was kind of like a push thing on the screen door. You know how most
right, the little button, yeah.
Store doors have a little handle with a button on it.
Right.
And I put my hand on that and I went like this and I said, I'm not going in there. And just that touch, I'm not going in there. And Ryan looked at me and I'm sure he thought, oh, well, we bought you an airline ticket. We probably fed you at least one meal. We gave you a hotel room and you're not going in. And he said, well, do you mean now or not at all? I said, no, I'm not going in right now. I've got to be in a much better headspace before I go in there. And I took Andrew, called him by the hand, and I said, come on, we're going to go back to the Winnebago, and we're going to pray. We went into the Winnebago, into the back room, shut the little sliding door, that's in the Winnebago, and went back in there and said a whole lot of prayers before I went in.
Cool.
But the minute that I went in again, I had no idea who the family was. Nothing. And the first thing, I'm not going to get too graphic, but you need to hear what I'm saying to you that happened on this. And you were asking how you tell the difference between something that's non-human and human. Here you go. When I went into the house, the first thing that this evil thing said to me was, Artie, F the mother. Now I'm going to F the little girl.
Holy shoot. Oh my, see, I would have back out the way I came.
I already F'd the mother. Now I'm going to F the little girl. I didn't know. And when Ryan said, I went, oh my God. And Ryan said, what? I said, do you want me to tell you what it said? And he said, yes. And I told him, and I heard he had his little IFB, his little earpiece in. And I heard all of a sudden, it was so loud that the earpiece, it goes, stop, 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 stop. And all of a sudden producers came running in and everything just shut down. And the producers said, oh my God. Oh my God. They said, that is incredible, but that's never going to make it to television.
Yeah.
That's never going to make it to television.
No.
They're never going to allow that to go to television. He said, and the producer said, is there any way that you can get that same thing across without saying exactly what you said? I said,
it doesn't hold the same weight though, does it? I mean,
no, it doesn't, but you'll hear me say, but actually what was said was, already F the mother, now I'm going to F the little girl.
Oh my God.
Or the child. I don't remember if it said child or little girl. Anywho.
Either way.
And I said, yeah, I think I can do it. So Ryan, we backpedaled a little bit, and Ryan said, I went, oh my God. And Ryan said, well, what did it say to you? I said, it wants the child.
Oh my God.
So that was the line instead of I'm going to F the child. So as it turns out, later we find out there's 2 kids in the house, a 3-year-old little girl and a toddler, I'm not sure how old, a year maybe, little boy, and a mom and a dad. And, this entity told me later that it was the same entity from Elizabethtown. It told me that it was there because this family had opened a door for it.
Holy.
And this thing was, you talk about some weird, catch this. Here's another thing. The woman that lived in the house was being sexually assaulted, actually raped by this thing.
Holy God.
And she was taken into, I don't want to get too graphic, but she was taken to the hospital for an examination.
Oh my Lord.
And this thing was leaving blisters internally and externally on the woman, 2nd and 3rd degree blisters to where they asked the woman at the hospital in the emergency room if she had inserted a hot curling iron into her vaginal cavity.
I've tried to tell you this stuff is real.
Oh my God.
That's why I never want you to
she said, "Are you kidding me?" She said, "I'm not crazy. I am depressed. I'm scared. I'm anxious. I'm all of this stuff, confused, but I'm not crazy enough to stick a curling iron inside myself."
How do you think that you mentioned that they opened the door for it? How would you think that something like that is possible? How do you?
Here's the thing that I will tell you and tell everybody else. Andrew Calder, that I mentioned before, rest his soul, he has since passed away a few years ago. Andrew Calder was a smart guy. And Andrew Calder taught me many things. And one of those things is when you're dealing with clients, always remember TAL. TAL. You know what that stands for? They all lie.
Yep.
Either blatantly lie to you, don't tell you the truth, or either error by omission.
Mm-hmm.
One of those two is what he said to look out for. These guys held some stuff back. What we found out later was they happened to mention this when they contacted Paranormal State production company, or did they mention it to Ryan and his group when they got there? What they neglected to mention was, oh, they had a friend come in and try to cleanse the house, and she didn't know what the hell she was doing. She also, hold on, let me shut this phone off. They also didn't mention that in the woods behind their house, probably not far, it wasn't at all very far away,
right?
That some kids had been found sacrificing small animals and doing some satanic worship in the woods. He also neglected, now his name was Raymond, and I don't remember, I'd have to think for a while what her name was, but anyway, nonetheless, his name was Raymond, but his nickname, now this guy was big. I mean, he was a big guy, like 300 plus pounds, and his nickname was Tiny.
Of course.
A misnomer, but Tiny was his nickname, and he was over 300 pounds for sure. He neglected to tell anybody that this is back in the AOL days. This is how long ago this was. His handle on AOL, remember AOL Messenger when AOL Messenger was the thing?
Quite well.
His handle on AOL was, get ready, Tiny666.
Oh boy! So he was into exploring.
So he had looked at devil worship, satanic stuff as a teenager, and because he didn't want them to think badly of him, had not told them any of this. So all this stuff is going on, and true to form, remember I said I'm going to do the child? The day after this happened, the family went back in that night and stayed at the house.
No way.
And the next morning when they got up, the little 3-year-old girl had a rash all over her bum.
Oh my God, poor kid. Oh yeah.
So that's when the production company got them the hell out of there and put them in a hotel. Also, the next day, I'll tell you, just in finishing up this story, they put them in the hotel we were staying at, and Father Calder and I went for a production meeting with the group. We were getting ready to go back over to the trailer from the hotel, and they put the family in the same hotel we were staying at. It was someplace in Syracuse near the Carrier Dome or something like that. I seem to remember, but it was crazy. My doorbell.
Cue the dog.
I don't know. I thought I heard somebody come before. That was weird. So anyway, the family, I'd never seen the entire family together, all 4 of them, the mom, the dad, the little boy, and the little girl. The little girl's name is Katie. I remember that. So I can't remember the mom's name. That's going to bug me. But anyway, they came up to us as we were all sitting in the lobby. And when they all walked in together, I just did one. Andrew's sitting next to me. Andy Calder was sitting next to me. And I just went, he and I just had breakfast together. They had a breakfast buffet in the hotel. We just had a nice breakfast. And I will tell you that when they all walked in, I went, and the overwhelming, sick feeling of evil that I got off of them, that had attached to them, I went, oh my God, I'm going to be sick. And so I ran for the men's room, and Andy Calder was right on my tail. I mean, he was right on my ass. He had my 6. He went into the bathroom, and I threw open the door of one of the stalls and lost my breakfast.
Oh, man.
And Andy Calder, he grabbed me after I finished retching and spun me around and started hitting me with holy water. Hitting me with holy water because whatever had come at me, don't know what it was, but he started hitting me with holy water and saying some stuff. I don't know what he said, but
So these were the first 2 episodes that you filmed. Is that what you're saying?
welcome to Paranormal State, Chip.
Jesus.
Holy
And
cow.
I was the one that said
Did
yes,
you go back
please.
for more money after episode 2, or?
I wasn't being paid at this point in time,
Holy
children.
cow. Oh my God.
I didn't get paid till the 5th episode of Paranormal State.
Wow.
I was coming just for an airline ticket and a show and to be on a TV show.
Did experiencing this stuff, it didn't make you hesitate at any point, like rethink that maybe this isn't such a great idea?
Yeah, I mean, you could have been doing that every week. Would you really want to expose yourself to that every single week if their cases were like that? Honestly.
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
I was stupid enough to get crazy enough, or no, I'm going to back up with that. I've always been that guy that wanted to help others.
Yeah.
And so if I thought there was a chance that I could do something to help people, I wasn't going to run from it.
Did they help that family?
Oh yeah.
That's what
We
someone.
went, that's one of the only cases, the IM6 case we went back twice on, and we went back to the Syracuse case again to follow up on it. And we did a deliverance on that case too.
Wow.
Tiny was foaming at the mouth and chewing his tongue and whatever. And you know, we did a deliverance on Tiny.
That's crazy. I know your food is there. I want to do just a couple of rapid fire just questions.
Oh no, I'm fine. Yeah.
You sure? Because I don't want you to.
Yeah.
You had mentioned well we I don't know if you and I have ever talked about Ouija boards before in general. A, have you ever used one? B, do you think that it is the demon portal that everybody believes it is?
Am I rolling my eyes so much that it looks like a pinball machine? Do you know what my mouse pad is for my desktop computer?
Ouija board.
It's a Ouija. Do you know how many Ouija boards? I'm looking at several of them right now. I probably got 6 or 8 Ouija boards in my house that were given to me by Bob Murch.
Yeah, I know Bob.
I was probably given these. I know I was given most of them by Bob Murch.
You believe they're a reliable tool for communicating with spirits, even?
I believe it's another communication tool. It's made out of pressed board.
Yep.
For crying out loud, it's the intent that you go into it with, or what you fear. What you fear, you often attract.
Yep.
And the deal is, I used a Ouija board for the first time when I was probably 11 years old, or 12, living in the house that I lived in that was haunted in New York, and it told us some things that absolutely we did not know, but verified later that was absolute truth.
Wow.
100%. Yeah, I'm not afraid of them. It's just another divination tool. If you're afraid of the paranormal, you need to stay the F away from it.
Yes,
You know, because the paranormal, let me just tell you this. This is how I define the paranormal. The paranormal is like wading into a dark, murky swamp and realizing, you should realize, that you can get bitten in the ass by an alligator. Metaphorically speaking, that's the paranormal. You're putting yourself at risk. Minimal though it may be,
right.
You're going to put yourself at some risk if you start dabbling in or delving into or diving completely into the paranormal.
See, that's what I've been kind of saying to people for years now, that it is no different using a Ouija board than it is doing an EVP session, doing a spirit box, doing a seance, doing a pendulum. You're still trying to open that door and, you know, invite spirit in to communicate on some level. Like you said,
you hear about, here's the deal. People are thinking everything is a rampaging, evil, Captain Howdy-like demon. And the deal is, those things are rare. You see them on TV so much because people like seeing those kind of things.
Yep.
It excites them. It scares them. So 90-something% of hauntings, which that's not always a bad word. It just means the presence of paranormal activity. But you get somebody, you 90-something% is mom and pop garden variety spirits. The other percentage is something that's negative, and it can be demonic, no doubt about it. But it's not as prevalent. Some people say, "Oh, it's more prevalent than you think." I don't know that I buy that. I think there's a lot of really psychologically effed up people that think that they're possessed or think that there's something going on.
Yes.
But the deal is going in and finding those demonic things. I just happen to, crazily enough, be a part of 4 or 5 times that's happened in my life.
And I don't believe that the tip of the iceberg, normal variety garden paranormal person can handle a demonic haunting. I'm going to tell you flat out, I will walk. He knows this about me. I will walk away from something very negative and dark.
I pray a lot. I pray many times during the day. I've got my Catholic bling around my neck, my St. Michael medal, my St. Benedict medal. I go nowhere without them. My Celtic cross, because my dad was Irish. Part of my family was Irish. I just keep all that stuff on me constantly. I travel with holy water. That should be my Native American name, travels with holy water. I have crucifixes. I have rosaries. I feel like I'm protected. Right. And I don't live my life in fear. I just don't.
And that's another thing people will say, beyond the religious beliefs of the protection itself coming from a higher, it's just the strength in that belief will protect you from a barrier that nothing will get through, because you have that strength.
Well, my co-stars, if you will, my fellow cast members, I like that term better, on Kindred Spirits, they don't have the same religious beliefs that I do, and that's fine. They just believe in the strength of their own self. Okay. And they believe that there's inherent goodness in the world, but they don't believe the same as I believe, and that's fine. Right. No one, again, as we talked earlier, you don't have to believe the same ways. No. Everyone doesn't have to.
How would that help anyone if you did? I mean, if you're going in to help people and you're one mindset, I mean, that's it. You're getting one opinion and one point of view and one you need more than that, especially in this.
You do. Yeah. But we're all different, and we all have different beliefs, and that's fine. I feel protected, and I feel called to do the work that I do and to be of service to the living and the dead. And my goal is to my mission statement is to provide comfort, healing, and clarity. And that's what I try to do.
All right, couple of quick ones, real quick here, just for my own personal. When you pass, is there a choice? Do you choose to move on, or can you remain an earthbound spirit, or is an earthbound spirit even a real thing?
It is. I believe that they're rare, and I don't come into contact with them. A lot of mediums go, "Oh, I've got to cross this thing over." How the hell are you going to cross over a spirit? You're not dead. They don't know. They're like, "Boo! We got to cross these people over." I'm like, shut the up.
I wonder that as well.
Let's don't get there. They'll go when it's their time. They may have chosen to stay here because they don't know they're dead. They've got unfinished business. It's part of their soul's journey. You tell them, I'm going to pray for your soul. I'm going to pray that you're called when it's time for you to go. And when you feel like it's time for you to go, head on over there, wherever over there is.
Do they have the capability of going back and forth?
They spirits that have finished the transition and gone to spirit,
right, that
have crossed over, so to speak,
right,
can come back, cross that bridge only on a temporary basis to connect with us here in this dimension. They can't completely come back. Once they've crossed, they're in spirit, but they can bridge the gap and somehow come back and communicate with us here in the third dimension.
Okay, that makes sense. What was the other one that I had? Go ahead.
Well, I wanted to ask you with COVID hitting and us being more in our homes and on lockdown, just like you said, you haven't gotten out and been around people. We know that just for normal people, depression, anxiety, all these different things that we're feeling in society that are weighing heavy on us. Has that affected what you go through with your psychic ability, with the connection? Do you feel like overwhelmed? Do you feel like there's a wall? Do you feel things are more open for you? Is there any change for you whatsoever?
For me personally, there hasn't been any change. I will tell you that I've had to fight getting cabin fever because I'm used to being out and about.
Yeah.
And I've been home for a long time, kids. And the deal is sometimes it gets tiring. You know,
Yeah.
I want my life back, at least to some semblance of
You
what
told
my
me you
life
were
was.
talking to Lloyd, the bartender, the other day.
Yeah. And he started to look like those people from The Shining every now and
Yeah,
then.
that was a shining.
Yeah.
Pour me a drink. But no, it hasn't really had any impact that I've noticed on my ability to connect or any of my psychic stuff, mediumship stuff.
Do you believe in past lives, reincarnation, all that stuff? You do. You believe that the soul just repeats, that is there some big lesson that we're supposed to learn at the end of it, or?
I believe that our soul in its purest form wants to be as close to the divine, the perfection of the divine as it possibly can be.
Okay.
It'll never achieve that divine perfection, but we keep coming back, trying to add merit badges or colors to our soul's rainbow, or whatever you want to call it. That we keep coming back until we learn very valuable lessons that are going to stick with us. And until you learn those lessons, you got to keep repeating the class.
Well, here's a good question too that I just saw. Jennifer just asked, is it a bad idea to try to, for someone like me, or to try to openly contact your loved ones? Are you opening up that potential for something else to
No,
come
not if you say, I'm just trying to reach out to so-and-so. I'm not, and that's the reason I don't just do an open channel.
Right.
I'm going after that one individual soul, and you know, I'm not just saying anybody wants to come on in, come on down, like Price is Right. Everybody in the spirit world, come on down.
That's your next show right there. You just
Come on down, spirits.
I'm going to be Bob Barker. Who's the other guy that's on the show now? I forget what.
Drew
Carey. Yeah.
We had quite a few people that wanted to know how they can, one, get your book, two, how do they reach you for a reading?
My book, there's going to give you two answers here. My book is available on Amazon.com if you want it unsigned. I think it's $15-ish. And by the way, I'm writing another book. This is a paranormal novel, a paranormal thriller type novel. So
nice.
I'm in the process.
Exclusive. Oh.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go on Amazon and get the book. If you want a signed copy, you can go to my online store, which is www.chipcoffeeshop.com, and you can get a signed copy of my book. As far as doing a reading, go to my website at chipcoffey.com. Make sure you spell coffee, C-O-F-F-E-Y, and not like the beverage. chipcoffey.com. Click on the tab that says private readings, and there's 3 different kinds of readings that are offered, and just pick the one that you want. Call my number. Don't pay for it yet. Call and make the appointment first, and then make your payment. But call and the number that's on the website, and we'll get you set up for an appointment. Then you pay for your reading, and then we rock and roll.
Yeah.
Easy peasy.
We talk you again real quick. You mentioned how you joining Paranormal State made a difference. From my personal opinion, when we talked and you told me you were going on Kindred Spirits, that show, again, in my opinion, went from here to here, because I knew you were going to change the complexion of that show completely. They're good. I like Adam and Amy, but you add a completely different element to whatever show you're on.
Thank you. We've worked, Amy and Adam and I have worked together, known each other, and worked together for a number of years. So I think that personal friendship bleeds over into what we do. We're so comfortable with each other, and we don't always agree. Sometimes we fuss and fight, but we always figure it out. You know, I'm sure I've pissed Amy off. I'm sure I know she's pissed me off. I know that, and that's what happens in weird family situations. But you act like an adult and you get over it.
Yeah.
You know, and you don't always have the same, like I said, our spiritual or religious beliefs are certainly not the same. But, you know, you go in and you commit to the task at hand, and you just say, we're not going to let any differences make such a difference that it's going to cause a major problem.
Yeah.
You know,
well, you definitely are the added ingredient that makes that perfect recipe.
Thank you. I love being on that show. I love being a part of it. And I'm going to plug it again. Don't forget, January 2nd at 10 o'clock on the Travel Channel. 10 o'clock Eastern time on the Travel Channel. And then We're airing every Saturday at 10.
Do you know what the first episode is where it's gonna be? Could you tell us or no? You don't know.
I don't know if it's going to be the Proctor House episode in Salem, interesting, or the USS Salem.
Okay.
Both Salem things, so that's kind of interesting. I hadn't realized that, but we did an episode on a ship, and we went back to the John Proctor House where we visited during the Haunted Salem Live episode not this past October, but October of 2019.
Yeah, a lot of energy around that town, like Gettysburg. It's pretty much on tap, you know. Well, Chip, thank you again so much. You didn't have to do this, but I can't thank you enough for doing it. And
anytime.
Well,
you know that I did that. You know that I did this for Chris and not you. So there's.
I know. I still had to thank you. She told me I had to, or you'd never do it again. But Merry Christmas to you, cousin.
I love you both. I love you both dearly. I love you both dearly. Thank you, John, for having me come to your wonderful event every year for the past few years. And Chris, beat him over the head with a stick and make him stay healthy.
Oh God, yes.
Doesn't have to be done with beating over a stick, but she can do it. Chip, thank you so much again.
Thank you. Merry Christmas, everybody. Much love.
Happy New Year, and we will see each other in September.
Stay well.
We will do it. Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks for watching, everybody.